What's up, guys? Welcome into another edition of Bogey Free. We are coming at you with some NFL Week 15 action. Feels like the season's going by pretty quick. I am joined by Steve Halupka, as always. What's going on, Steve?
Nothing, man. Just chilling, getting ready for week 15. Super exciting times.
And interesting, before we get, we're lucky enough to Anthony Amico, you know him on Twitter at Amixta. Mostly, I know whenever I see a coach do something boneheaded, I always go right to Anthony's Twitter to see what he's ranting about because it's always that's always gold. And he's his fantasy insiders doing some stuff for Superflex DFS on 2 QBs. What's going on tonight, Anthony? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad that this coaching thing is attached to my brand now with identifying the bad coaching mistakes.
Oh, it's the best. I'm fully on board. Every time I see something stupid like clock management or anything, I'm always like, let me just see what Anthony's saying about this today. All right, so we can quickly run through my devastating loss in the listener league. Came in second. Fucking Roger again. Roger Casey, Lattice Project. Won again. I took down his winner-take-all Fire DFS thing 2 weeks ago. Got into a 5-man with him. He beats me with this lineup in my league and in that league. So I was just super tilt all fucking Sunday night. Like, just why didn't I play Burton instead of Anderson? I had such a good lineup, but he beat me with Gabbert, which is even more hurtful.
Oh.
Like, that's just not good. It was not he put together 171 points. So he went Gabbert and Fitz, which was pretty highly owned. But he sort of got bailed out by Hopkins and Gordon and Burton and Shady. So he got me again. I think that's his third win actually in our listener league, if I'm not mistaken. So we're me and you, Steve, are trailing right behind him.
Yeah, 2 each, man. Gotta step it up this week and take it down for the host of the show.
All right, so why don't we shoot right into some quarterback talk for this upcoming week? It is an interesting week. We have 11 games on the main slate this week because of the dumb Saturday games that just it's so much work to have to watch football like Thursday, Saturday. Although I'm not watching tonight, so I don't really give a shit actually, because this game is going to be dog shit. But what are we thinking for cash, Anthony, in quarterback this week?
I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to go just because I don't think that too many guys are like really priced out of consideration. Like, I wouldn't be afraid. I think there's enough salary that you can find this week to go as high as someone like Drew Brees for 6,500 if you wanted to go there. Just really like the overall situation. The Jets have given up a ton of touchdowns this year in the passing game. Saints have a massive team total. They even have a bunch of reverse line movement situations going in their favor, 1.5 of reverse line movement in their favor in terms of the spread. People are pounding the under, but the total has gone up. So I feel really good about that game being explosive. So I think that Breeze is certainly an option. And, you're always going to get your options at the lower salary levels. You can go Blake Bortles, I think. I think you can go Kirk Cousins for $6K. It feels kind of cheap. Then you have like your dirt cheap options, the Blaine Gabberts of the world. So really a lot of ways I think that you can go this week. It's going to really, I think, come down to what studs you're going to prioritize, at the skill positions.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Steve? Where are you landing on quarterback this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm echoing a lot of those names. Love Breeze in an awesome spot. Also think Case Keenum's interesting at 6,100. Going to really depend on how banged up the Cincinnati Bengals secondary is. We know Pac-Man Jones is beat up. We know Vontaze Burfict's been beat up as well. But at home, big favorite, kind of like in the Case Keenum for 61. And then just kind of scroll down the list a bit. I think you could even think about it. I hate to say it, but Joe Flacco, I think, is in play. Cash games, it might be hard to roster him for cash just because he's so inconsistent. But I think Flacco, and you're on the other end of that, Deshaun Kaiser's in play as well. that Baltimore secondary is just not the same without Jimmy Smith on the outside. And for some reason last week, I don't know why, Kaiser went away from Josh Gordon after he started off so hot. Like, just did not make sense at all. So I think Kaiser, and he performed pretty damn well too, even going away from Josh Gordon. So I think he might be in play.
Yeah, it seemed like he sort of, I don't know, at least had a semblance of like knowing what was going on, which was nice to see. He's definitely had a couple of flashes. The one guy I do want to, I guess, get your guys' opinion on, because I'm certainly not sold, but I know that it's a good spot, is Nick Foles. We have Wentz going down last week. Obviously, the Giants are just a dumpster fire. Like me and Steve talk about it every week. It's just super tilting being a Giants fan in general, and this year has just been pretty impossible. But Anthony, do you have any love for Foles and like throwing him in a tournament lineup, or are you staying away?
I mean, I think Foles in a tournament is definitely interesting just because of the matchup. There's certainly going to be some upside there, although I would imagine that Doug Peterson comes out with a little bit more run heavy of a play call sheet than he usually does. I'm certainly not there for cash. I mean, I just think that DraftKings has done such a good job with these prices. Like for 200 more, I'd rather just play Bortles, and then if I go down, I'd much rather play Gabbert at under 5K than pay 5,500 for Foles at this point. Like I just don't think that like the floor is quite high enough to justify paying a $5,500 price tag in cash games.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, anybody else that you're considering for GPPs at quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, you can always pay up too, right? We haven't even talked about, the returning Aaron Rodgers, like playing against Carolina, who's just been hemorrhaging passing yards for the last couple of weeks. I mean, we saw Josh McCown like go apeshit on Carolina. So with Rodgers back now, his full complement of weapons, that could be in play for 6,800, especially in the tournament. If you're paying all the way up, man, like this Pittsburgh New England matchup, I mean, massive over under 54 points. You could play either side of it, I think, with Roethlisberger and Brady. Brady's at 76, the most expensive quarterback on the sheet. And then Roethlisberger at 67, man. At home, he's a totally different animal. We've seen him just dominate people. The New England secondary, even though we're thinking that, Brady's going to be pissed off this game, that New England secondary sucks. Like, they're so terrible. They should have gotten beat for another deep ball with Jakeem Grant, but he can't catch. So, like, I think Ben's totally in play in GPP as well.
Yeah, and I'm like shocked at that price tag too, because he's 4x that tag 3 of the last 4 weeks, and he's at home. Like, it's not like this is a bad spot. I'm kind of shocked that he's actually priced that low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting him, being $100 less than Rodgers, and we don't really know exactly what's going to happen there. So, and then you could just always, I mean, are we buying into this whole like Russell Wilson can't play against the Rams thing, or is that just is it? I don't know, Steve. You shook your head. Which way are you going there?
His track record is just so bad against the Rams. It's amazing just how he plays against them versus the rest of the league. I think he's definitely in GPP consideration, of course. He's been so damn good, like salvaging his day against Jacksonville last week. I don't think I've ever seen him take so many deep shots in a game consistently. Like every once in a while, you see him just take a bomb shot to Lockett or Richardson, but this game was consistently throwing the ball down the field, and that was just absolutely amazing how many times he just chucked it out there. So. And don't forget, too, that the Rams secondary's beat up. They've lost some couple corners as well, so they're not going to be as strong on the outside.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, like we sort of said in the beginning, I think this is a pretty wide open week. Like, we're talking about so many of these different guys that are reasonably cash viable. And there's only 11 games on top of that. It's going to be interesting to see how ownership shakes out. Because I mean, there's only like 5 or 6 plays that I'm like totally against, and you could probably talk me into anybody else at this point, honestly. So, all right, if we hit everybody there, we can head over to running backs, or did we miss somebody, Anthony?
No, that's fine with me. Let's rock and roll.
All right. And as we're talking about running backs, my buddy's texting me right now, asking me if he should play Frank Gore or not tonight.
Oh,
I'm like,
is Frank Gore still alive after
I know.
Sunday?
I
So
think
many
he's just like he's just like a walking igloo right now.
Yeah, like if there's a game where they're going to give Marlon Mack like 15 or 20 carries, like it has to be this one, I feel like.
Yeah. 4 days after playing in a blizzard and giving the guy like 35 touches. It's like, oh man, I'm trying to talk him out of it, but whatever. All right, so we finally, speaking of, we mentioned Pittsburgh already, but we finally have Lev Bell back on the main slate after, I don't know, 3 months. It seems like it's like it's been like at least 4
Forever.
weeks, right? I mean, it's nuts. But at 9,300, the most expensive guy on the slate, can we fit him in, Anthony?
We can definitely play him. I mean, there's no doubt that we can play him. I don't want to necessarily blaspheme here on the show, but right now I'm not playing him. I'm leaning more on the AB side of this, just because I think we have some really, really good value at the position. We look at guys like Samaje Perine, 4,800, Kenyon Drake, 5,800, Alex Collins, 5K. I mean, that's a lot of touches that I think we can rack up there for, roughly $15,000, $16,000. I'm not really sure that we have to pay $9,300 for Lev Bell. I mean, Perine has really no legitimate backup this week. He's probably going to get a ton of work. Kenyon Drake has seen at least 28 touches in both of his starts without Damian Williams, and Buffalo gives up the most points to running backs in fantasy football. And Alex Collins has just been a complete monster. And we know that Cleveland also can give up points to the running back position as well. So I'm kind of leaning more towards playing that trio of guys right now and fading Bell. But, I mean, certainly playing Le'Veon Bell is always in play.
Right, yeah, and I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think being underweight on him is probably going to be the way that I go, because I wrote it up today. I don't feel like I need to do it. It's not one of those weeks where there's like nobody under 7K that we can consider. Like there's plenty of good plays volume wise. So absolutely. We should touch on these New Orleans running backs as well. Assuming Kamara plays, Steve, what are we going to roster either of these guys?
I mean, it looks great. Like the spot's awesome. They're a 16-point favorite at home. The Jets are just a damn good running defense, though. Still, like up front with Wilkerson and Williams, they're still pretty badass up front. So if I'm playing one of them, I think it'd be Kamara just for the pass catching upside. I don't think I'd be rostering Ingram at 82. So if I was going to pick either one, it would be Kamara, and probably in a GPP. I don't think you would need to even roster him in a cash game, especially with the second most expensive back on the slate.
Yeah, it's just so tough. Can you really project more than like 14 to 16 touches for either of those guys when they're both active? And it's just that price is a little bit high for me. Certainly not a cash play. Anthony, where are you leaning? Sort of, I guess, from like Fournette and up. You could throw Shady in there and Gurley with the guys that we just talked about.
Well, I mean, I do like Kamara, I think, as a tournament play. I do really like the spot, like Steve was saying. Jets are 26th in DVOA against running backs in the passing game. Kamara does have an 18% target share in the offense. So, we know that his touch ceiling really isn't as high as we probably like. But I think the fact that a lot of those touches are going to come in the passing game kind of mitigates that. He has at least 5 receptions dating back all the way to week 9. Week 14 was actually the first time he hasn't done it since week 9. He only had 3. So, I mean, we're really locking in, I think, some points already as a floor there. And I do think that helps his ceiling. So I think Kamara is probably my preferred play in that range. When I look at like some of these other guys, like Shady coming off a really massive workload, don't really love the matchup against Seattle for Gurley. Fournette, I feel like might not even play. Guess he's been so limited and hasn't been practicing. So, and then the price is just like falls off a cliff. So I feel like for me, it's Kamara.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I feel like he's probably, I don't know, is there anybody more likely to get like a 60-yard touchdown right now than Kamara, right? Like, I mean, other than like Ty Fraud, you really don't have anybody. You don't have anybody.
Shady and Snow, that's it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned him a couple minutes ago, but it appears based on fan share right now that Kenyon Drake is going to just be the chalkiest of chalk. He's outpacing everybody in tags right now. Steve, are we willing to eat that chalk this week?
Yeah, man. Like everything is pointing in that direction. Matchup's awesome. I know they're going to be in Buffalo, which is a tough place to play, but that Buffalo rushing defense has not been the same since losing Marcel Darius via trade. Drake's just getting too much work. He's in all facets of the game, pass game, run game. He's just getting too much for him not to be kind of. I would rather be overweight on Kenyon Drake than be underweight this week.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think as of right now, he's gotten the most start calls on fan share, like over Lev, over AB, like everybody. So for sure, I think that the price makes it worth it to sort of deal with his ownership because he doesn't cost you that much. And then Anthony, you mentioned P Rhyme before. Is there anybody else down in this range, like in this 5K range that you're interested in?
Yeah, there's a couple guys actually outside the guys I mentioned. Like I'm into Jerick McKinnon this week. Cincinnati, I thought just got abused last week on the ground by both Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard. We know that McKinnon has been in this really terrible timeshare with Latavius Murray, but he's still involved in the offense. He's obviously still involved in the passing game. Only 7 carries against the Panthers, but again, that's a game that they were losing. I think that if they get up against Cincinnati, we're going to see more Latavius. We're going to see more Jerick. So I definitely like his upside. And DeMarco Murray, I think, is at least worth considering. I know he's been terrible. I think that Murray is probably like 2 months away from no longer being a Titan. But he's still seeing a ton of snaps. He's still seeing work. And the Niners just love giving up points, the running back position, both on the ground and in the pass game. And Murray is still seeing more of those passing targets than Derrick Henry is. So I think that he is certainly very viable.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Steve? What other sort of pay down options are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, to Anthony's point before, I think Alex Collins at 5K is like it's an awesome value. He's been so damn good since he's been given the reins in Baltimore. They're in a good spot against Cleveland for 5K. Going down a bit further, though, it gets kind of ugly. Once you get past that, I would just be aware in the case that Matt Forte doesn't play this week. I could see the potential for rostering Bilal Powell in GPPs. I know it's a jet. You don't want to play any jets, but coming back against the Saints, you're going to have to dump the ball off. And if Forte's not there, we've seen the workload for Powell in the past. So I do think he could be GPP viable at 4K.
And McGuire's banged up too, right?
And McGuire's banged up also. Yep.
Yeah, so that's definitely good.
Yeah, and there was one more name, actually. I just found him again. Mike Davis at 4K also.
That's what I was
for the Seahawks. Yeah, man. Like, just so much volume the last couple weeks. And for 4K against, again, a beat-up Rams defense in a pretty high-scoring game at home, I'd be on Mike Davis, too.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it last week too, right? Like, I feel like they have to want to run the ball at some point, right? Like, they can't just rely on Wilson to be like accountable for 90% of their offense all the time. I mean, although I guess it's kind of worked out so far, so I guess they technically can. Assuming it, and it looks like AP is definitely not playing this week, obviously. So Kerwin Williams raising any eyebrows, or just there's enough other value, right?
Yeah, I think there's enough other value. Yeah, and Arizona doesn't travel well to the East Coast either.
Yeah, Powell, Davis, I think those guys are superior plays for sure.
Yeah. All right. And then I did just want to quickly, we kind of skipped over him, which I think is probably going to be the case ownership wise as well. But I mean, Jamal Williams has looked great. It's obviously not the best spot. And we don't know exactly we don't know what that offense is going to look like this week, right? We don't know if it's just going to be right back to just Rodgers throw, or they're going to try to be balanced. But Anthony, you have any love for Jamal Williams?
No, I mean, I have like a lot of bias against Jamal Williams because I've just been Team Aaron Jones for so long. But no, I mean, he's been playing really well. I just don't love the spot. I mean, the Carolina run defense has been very, very consistent. I do think that they will pass the ball a little bit more. I mean, I agree in the standpoint that like people are going to miss the fact that Aaron Rodgers being back means that he'll probably have more like traditional scoring opportunities as opposed to like catching 30-yard touchdown passes. But the price has just come up so much because he's been playing so well. This 6,500 just has me kind of out on him.
How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it's a contrarian GPP play, right? Like a lot of people are going to be rostering Cam, Rodgers, and the pass catchers this week. Like people are going to be psyched to go talk about Jordy Nelson and play Jordy Nelson, I feel like. So this would be some leverage against the rest of the field in a large-scale GPP.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I don't know. I think just like on assuming that he's going to see the same volume, I think that the price is okay. And like Anthony mentioned, there will, I mean, supposedly there will be a more opportunities for scoring, obviously, with Rodgers over Hundley. So hopefully he can maybe cash in a short touchdown or two there as well. All right, so why don't we shoot over to wide receivers, and we can start up at the top again. The second highest salary on the slate is Antonio Brown, who Anthony kind of already said he's leaning there. So, Steve, what are you thinking about AB?
Yeah, man, I love him. Like, he just does everything so well. It's amazing just the ways that Pittsburgh gets in the ball, either formationally or through their play calling, and he can just beat anybody. He beats double coverage. He beats single coverage. There's just so many ways that he gets the job done. So, yeah, for 91, man, like, his volume is just crazy, too. Like, his target share has been insane the last couple of weeks. And I think you actually put something out on Twitter today, too, that he had, 51% of the air yards for Pittsburgh the last couple of weeks. So kudos to you for pulling that stat out.
Yeah, past 6 weeks, I think it was like 48% of the air yards, which is just
insane,
nuts. So, yeah, I mean, if I can definitely tell myself a story to fade Bell, I cannot tell myself a story to fade Brown this week. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. As we keep going through these guys, there's a pretty significant drop-off down to Hopkins, who is, I mean, going against like the stone worst matchup you possibly have. Is 7,700 too expensive in that matchup for you, Anthony?
I mean, I just think he is like the ballsiest of GPP plays this week, and I like it a lot. Like, I mean, Jalen Ramsey's been a monster. He shut down, I feel like, basically everyone. But Hopkins has just been a complete target hog. You know, you get the price discount, on the matchup. I think that I'm going to play him a little bit, and I don't think it's going to take a lot to be overweight, versus the field. So I kind of think that guys who get that kind of volume, you have to just play when they're going to be low owned, and you might get lucky. I mean, listen, like, we don't root for stuff like this, but Jalen Ramsey could fall down funny in the first quarter and turn his ankle, and like all of a sudden Hopkins like is going to smash. I think those odds alone are going to be worth, just based on like expected value, like worth playing him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're also hoping. I think Savage is still in the concussion protocol, right? And I think he's out, like, for sure. I think they named Yates the starter, so you're hoping that he can sort of put together a couple of drives, right? And he'll probably just be focusing in on Hopkins. So the targets will be there. It's just a matter of, I guess quality of target is also something to take into consideration. If you've watched any Giants games, you understand what that means as well. And then we have Thielen, Thomas, and Cooks. And for me personally, when I was writing up wide receivers before, I sort of grouped these three guys together because this is another situation where I can sort of tell myself a story to like one of them better than the others, but I think that they're all in pretty decent spots. Steve, where are you landing between these three guys?
Yeah, if I'm picking one out of three, I think it's Michael Thomas. Just his consistent volume week over week, and now he's finally finding the end zone too, which is something that he wasn't doing earlier in the season. And for 7,400 against the Jets secondary, that's just been getting torched week in, week out. I'm totally on board with him at home in the Dome. Really liking Michael Thomas this week.
How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I've played Michael Thomas so much in cash this year, like probably way too much because he just keeps giving me like 14 or 15 points. But like it's just so safe. Just so safe. You got to lock in the targets. You know that the points will be there for the offense. And like Steve said, like they've been giving up points to receivers. They're 30th in DVOA against wide receiver ones. Like it's not like this is a particularly difficult matchup where we have to worry about him getting stopped. Like I think in cash you got to play him, but I do really, really like Thielen in tournaments.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with Thielen. I think if he gets something to go his way last week, he would have had a monster game. I think he had a touchdown called back. He dropped one. Like it could have been a really nice weekend for him and for me because I had him everywhere because that goddamn commercial that played when I was talking about him during the show last week because that's how much of a fish I am that I actually played that because of that. But yeah, so yeah, I agree. I think I'm sort of. I think it's easier for me to tell myself not to play Cooks with Hayden coming back and not really knowing exactly how Hogan's going to factor in and all that stuff. Like, I just think there's enough for me to be like, I'd rather just not have to worry about it. I'd rather just play Thomas and take the volume. So, if we sort of go a little bit lower here, Steve, where are you landing? I don't think you're going to be playing Old Man Larry this week, but
No.
As we keep going down, where are we headed?
No, I mean, I think this is a really interesting grouping from under 7K. I mean, both Packers receivers are there, so you can pick your poison with Devontae Adams or Jordy. Adams is 68, Jordy 63. I'm totally off AJ Green, even though Xavier Rhodes has given up a big play every once in a while for 65. Funchess is really interesting to me at 66. He's really interesting playing against this terrible Packers secondary. Clearly the number one target for Cam in this offense with a pretty solid over-under for this game at 47. And the Packers, I mean, their secondary just gets absolutely roasted every single week. I mean, Deshaun Kaiser threw for 3 touchdowns last week. And 20th in pass DVOA. I think Funchess actually has some pretty good upside in this game for 66.
Yeah, I can get on board with some bunches of Funchess. How about you, Anthony? Where are you headed in this sort of 6K range?
Yeah, definitely agree on Funchess. I don't know if you saw this Sammy Reed tweet today, but he said that Funchess, since the Benjamin trade, has a 28% target share, 42% air yard share. It's the exact same as Julio Jones. So elite usage, I think, at this point is fair to say that, Funchess is getting that, and the matchup is really good. So he's probably my top play in this range. I do think that you can play Green in some tournaments just because the other guys in this range are so clearly going to be owned over him. Adams, Baldwin, Funchess, Jordy. I think all those guys are going to carry maybe 3 times as much ownership as Green is going to carry. And again, 6,500 for a guy that sees his target share and I think is in a little bit of a better than you think matchup. I'm in on Green in tournaments, and I'm in on Jordy, honestly. I wish that like this was 2007 and not 2017, and like we were going to get him at like 2% ownership because people don't pay attention. Like we're very, very informed now, so I feel like 12 to 15% in that range is more realistic. But I just think you got to play him. Like I feel like this Aaron. I don't know if you saw this like Aaron Rodgers quote where he's like, "I know there's a lot of juice left in 87. Yeah. I'd like to fill that up." Like,
yep.
First of all, Aaron, like you're clueless. Your quote makes no sense. But like, also like you're gonna get this dude the rock. Like I want to be a part of that. Like I'm just really buying the like Rodgers coming back and just like melting the NFL's face for the next 3 weeks. Like I'm buying that as a narrative, and I just think that Jordy's a big part of that.
So I'm a little hurt about this whole Josh Gordon thing now. So it seems like he is going to see what, like a quarter of the ownership that he saw last week. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
So and I think that people are either going to be scared off by the red number for Baltimore not knowing enough that Smith isn't there anymore, right? And I think this is probably a better matchup than most people will think. So I'll definitely have a little bit of him as well. I always have to talk about Josh Gordon because I don't know when he's going to get when he's going to be gone again, and we won't be able to play him. So we gotta take advantage when we can. But I totally agree on everybody. I think I'm a little too confident in Jordy, and I think that's probably going to end up burning me this week. But I guess we'll see what happens there. How about some cheap guys that we're going to have to fit in for cash, sort of this maybe 6K and under. I mean, I know Goodwin seems to have a good rapport with Garoppolo, right? So I think I think he's pretty viable in a decent matchup at home. Anybody else that you're paying down for here, Anthony?
Well, right now for me in cash, I don't have to go. I'm not going this low just because of the way I'm constructing the rest of my roster, but there's always options, I feel like, in these lower tiers at wide receiver. I mean, under 6K, I feel like Stephon Diggs is in play. I mean, again, Minnesota bias for me. Maybe I'm just way too into this passing game, but I feel like Diggs, he had 10 targets last week. Share overall has, kind of predicts that he's going to produce better than he has. Granted, he's had, he's gotten 12 DK points in 3 of the last 4 weeks. But we expect more. But I just think that this is a really, really nice spot for him. I still believe in Robbie Anderson against New Orleans. I know that, Lattimore's back, Crawley's back, all these guys are healthy, but Anderson is just someone who's going to see a ton of targets. I still believe that this is an offense that's going to have to throw a ton. We talked about the spread a little bit before when we talked about New Orleans. So I just think that Anderson, from a volume perspective, could still fill it up. And Dede Westbrook, the price has come up. He's 5,100 now. But he has just been getting so much volume in this offense, particularly in the deep part of the field. I think you see something like 46% of their deep passes since he's come back from an injury. So that's pretty crazy to me. And when you factor in that Houston has just been giving up a lot of work in the deep passing game, we think about, the Seattle game. We think about, even last week against San Francisco, they got torched. They have been getting beat so consistently. And Westbrook has, I think that he is definitely someone worth considering as well.
Yeah, I think outside of I just pulled it up. Outside of the Indy game, I mean, the air yards that he's seen are just ridiculous. He's been over 40% of the air yards for Jacksonville in 3 of the last 4 games. So definitely taking some shots to that dude right now. So I can get on board with that too. And I mean, isn't Bryce Petty the one that made Robbie Anderson? Yep. So why not, right? At least we know there's something there. How about you, Steve? Where are you looking down here?
Yeah, those are definitely some good names that Anthony talked about. Love some Dede Westbrook. If you keep going a little bit further, the one name I would think about would be Nelson Aguilar at 44. Obviously, we don't know what Nick Foles is going to bring to the table, but Aguilar just seems like a safer bet over in the slot versus their outside receivers like an Alshon Jeffrey or Torrey Smith. Again, playing the New York Giants, whose secondary, I think they're about to call you, Matt, to go play slot corner for because they're not playing Eli Apple. Eli Apple may never see the field again for the New York Giants. So I think Aguilar's got some decent upside and volume floor at 4,400. And then I'm thinking about Mike Wallace and for GPPs if you need to squeeze someone in who's a little bit higher priced. For 4,700 against Cleveland, Jason McCourty's been good this year, but he's fallen off as of late. And Wallace has seen the vast majority of the work now over Jeremy Maclin in that offense. He's definitely taken over as the number 1 receiver. So I think Wallace has some decent volume, and he's a big play away from really making a day at 4,700.
Yeah, I can get on board with those too. I mean, I guess sort of like Anthony was saying, I think that you don't really have to go dumpster diving this week, I don't think, and at wide receiver. So, yeah, I can get on board with all those plays, and I wrote up Aguilar too today, so I'm on board with you there. All right, why don't we hit some just gross tight ends, and then the two of you can pick a couple of defenses because I refuse to talk about defenses. So what are we doing? Are we going full hog and going after Gronk? We going angry Gronk and angry Brady off of the suspension, Anthony?
I mean, I'm not in cash, but like Brady Gronk for me is just always viable, especially off a loss. Right now, I'm kind of like just willing to inject like all the Tyler Croft into my veins that I possibly can in cash games and tournaments. Like the guy just sees volume. I know that he hasn't the last couple of weeks, but for the most part, he's been a pretty consistent part of the offense. He's been scoring points. And Minnesota, again, this is like one of those spots where I feel like we think that their boundary guys are really good. So what does that mean? They're going to funnel some more targets to the inside. That means that Croft is there. So for 2,800, like I just think that's really low. I think that price tag really is just reflecting what he's done the last couple of weeks and not what he's done over the course of the full season. So like in a week where we do want to fit like some of these higher priced wide receivers, maybe you want to play, Le'Veon Bell, maybe you want to play Drew Brees. Like I think that going all the way down to Croft at 2,800 is viable. And then, in that same range, you still have your Charles Clays, your Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Like those two guys, I think for me are a little similar just because we're not positive at the volume that they're going to get, but we do know that they have some talent. And I think as a result, they have some upside. And no one's really looking to play those guys. I feel like for the most part, people are thinking Jimmy, they're thinking Gronk. They're probably even thinking Jesse James after last week. But like, I'm not looking to overreact to that Jesse James game from last week.
Yeah, I think that's big time chasing points. Like if I lose because I didn't play Jesse James this week, I think I'll be all right sleeping on Sunday. Yeah. Steve, where are you leaning in tight end this week?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty damn gross out there if you're not paying up. Even the middle tier with like Jimmy Graham and Kyle Rudolph. Rudolph might be banged up in this game. He didn't practice again today, so we don't know if he's going to play or not. And going a little bit further down than that, still pretty gross with like Vernon Davis and Ben Watson has some upside. He was at 8 for 91 in their first meeting. So for 38, he's not a terrible play, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, either you're paying all the way down for a guy like Croft or you're paying up for like Gronk and potentially even Ertz in his first game back. But yeah, man, tight end's really gross this week.
Yeah. Can I give a quick shout out to Blake Bell? Like if Rudolph doesn't play, like this is like the week where you can just play a stone minimum tight end who like is questionable in terms of ability and just let it ride, right? Like we can do that this week, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and that happens and you get burned, it's at Amixta on Twitter. So I literally just scrolled down to be like, oh, I wonder who the backup tight end is for Minnesota. And I was like, I'm not saying that.
Maybe they take Keenum out, though, and they just like they go full Oklahoma. They just snap it to him. Just let him run it in.
Exactly. The last guy I did want to, I guess, just sort of get your opinion on. It seemed like he sort of factored back into the game plan a little bit was Vernon Davis last week. Are we concerned that Arizona is a bad matchup for tight ends, or do you think we can sprinkle him in?
I'm just concerned that the usage is not going to stay where it was. I mean, the 7 targets last week was really refreshing, and he scored, but he still only caught 2 passes, 2 or less targets in his 3 prior games to that. And then obviously, I think once you factor in the matchup and even the price, to me, I think 3,900 is. I would expect a little lower considering what he's done overall.
Yeah.
I would just rather go down and play some of these other guys.
Yeah, that's fair. I just figured that's kind of the only other guy although, I mean, I don't know. Did we say Greg Olson's name? I mean, is he played all the snaps last week? Is there, I don't know. I just feel like tight end's so gross. If you just hit like a touchdown on one of these fucking guys, you're like, you're in business half the time. So I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching myself too thin here.
I'd much rather play Olsen. I'm down for that. This is like, if you're Carolina, this is an all hands on deck game. You beat the Packers. You're basically in. They're basically out. Like this is a huge spot for them. I know that Green Bay has been really good against tight ends, but Olsen is someone who, when he's healthy, we know is a huge factor in this offense. We know that Cam has really thrown the ball most consistently to him in his career with the Panthers. And again, the price is so low now versus his talent, versus his historical usage in the offense. I mean, there's definitely a chance that he crushes that price.
All right, you made me feel better about it. That's good. All right, why don't we shoot over to defense and I guess Steve, we can do our cursory. You give me like your two favorites, and then I say a gross like 2,300 defense, and then you yell at me, and then we can hear Anthony's opinion, and then we could talk some stacks.
That sounds good, man. Yeah, I mean, the top 5 this week are looking pretty damn good if you're willing to pay up. Vikings at home against Cincinnati looks awesome. I know they're coming off kind of a rough outing last week. Philly playing against that terrible Giants team. Like, I just don't know how many times Eli's going to get sacked in this game. I feel like the over-under should be like 8.5, just because they're going to beat him up so bad. I feel awful for him. Not as much on the Ravens with those injuries in the secondary, but I'm really liking the Eagles and Vikings this week at 36 and 3,500 respectively.
How about you, Anthony? Where are you headed here?
I really like Washington at 2,800 at home against Arizona. The Cardinals have given up double-digit fantasy points to the opposing DST and 4 of their last 5 games, and the 5th game was 8 points against Houston. So I think you're getting actually a really solid floor here at 2,800. They're probably my preferred cash defense right now. I do like to go under 3K when I can. And I'm kind of like you, Matt. Like I'm more into like the gross, like 2,500 and less defenses. Like sure, in a tournament, like I'll pay up for like a New Orleans or Jacksonville, but I think that like your hold your nose and play them defenses this week are going to be teams like the Giants, honestly, against Nick Foles. Like I think that and don't get me wrong, like I'm team Nick Foles. I'm playing him in a 2QB league in my playoffs this year, but like he could go, like if he went out and threw 3 picks, like would we be surprised? I don't think so, and I think that the overall quality of the offense could just take a huge hit, and the Giants are 2,500 at home. They still do have some good players. They still do have Steve Spagnuolo calling the defense. Like I'm not totally out on them. And then just under them, 2,400, Houston at Jacksonville. I'll just always play a cheap defense that has guys like Jadeveon Clowney on it against Blake Bortles. Like that could pay off at any time, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. My gross call was going to be the Giants, but if anybody's listening from last week when I said that the Giants were going to come out because of Spags and win by 2 scores, I guess I kind of missed the mark on that. But shit happens.
They were in it, man. They were in it till the Collins injury. Man, it was 10-10 going in the 3rd quarter. Then they just got their shit stomped.
Yeah, I turned it off with the Dez touchdown. That's when I switched to red zone. I was like, I can't fucking do this to myself again. Like I can't be aggravated all Sunday for that shit.
So brutal.
All right, so why don't we get some of our favorite stacks out there, and then we can close out. Steve, why don't you give a couple of your faves?
Yeah, it's pricey, but Breeze with Michael Thomas and Kamara. I think just total New Orleans romp. Obviously, they're the largest favorite on the board, have a massive total this week, but it's going to be pretty, I think, pretty chalky, but I do think it's certainly viable in GPPs. Cam with Funches, another favorite of mine. Cam 64 Funches, again, mid-priced as well. And then also kind of in the mid-tier, Case Keenum with Adam Thielen playing against Cincinnati at home.
All right, I can get on board with those. I'm trying to find like the grossest one I can, so I'll let Anthony go, and then I'll just agree with whatever you guys say and throw out a couple of bad ones.
Love it.
I like it. I'm noticing a theme here with your process. We're just gonna find.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely gonna echo obviously the Breeze stack. We talked about stacking also that Green Bay Carolina game. I'm in on that. But I'm gonna go back to Jacksonville. Like I just think that this is a good spot for Bortles, and I think a lot of these other stacks are going to carry a bunch of ownership. You can play Blake Bortles and Dede Westbrook together and get that stack for like 2% and fill out the rest of your roster with a bunch of really high upside players. So I'm definitely in to pay up for some of these other really, really good offenses. But if I'm going to pay down and try to go a little more balanced, I think that the Jacksonville stack there is the way to go for me, at least.
Yeah, I can get on board with those. I don't know. I was trying to find, like, I was gonna say fuck it, whatever. I was gonna say like really gross and like super thin would have been like a Petty Anderson. It's just you just hope that he can put something together, right? Like maybe if you stack that game up and he manages to hit a couple of touchdowns to Anderson, that would be super super low owned. And honestly, I mean, I feel like it's kind of gross too, but I feel like I'm gonna have some Kaiser to Gordon or Coleman, just hoping for that long bomb and hit on a core, because I think that will be after last week. I think that'll be obviously heavily discounted ownership wise. So, but obviously those are super thin, like one lineup out of whatever the hell you're putting in. But. And obviously you can just tell, you can see the wheels turning if you're watching the video at some point. I'm just like, these are too gross for me to say out loud. So I'm just going to stop before I say anything that's going to have people hit unsubscribe. So seriously, Anthony, thanks for coming on, man. Again, we've been lucky with a couple of really good guests this year, and you're definitely up at the top of that list. So thank you for joining us. You can find him on Twitter at Amixta, and you can find his content all over the place, and his coach rants are primo. So thanks again, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. This was a lot of fun.
And Steve, as always, good talking to you. We'll keep battling it out on the in the listener league.
Sounds good, man.
All right. And good luck to everybody listening to this. If you're interested, you can follow along with us on Twitter. Check out our content. You can go over to bogeyfreedfs.com and check out the positional breakdowns that I am about to go work on. So good luck this week. See you.